My name is Monroe Mann of Unstoppable Artists, and this is Before the Big Break. We're here in the VIP section of the Nokia Theater in Times Square. We just rocked out for 3 hours watching the Twisted Sister Christmas Spectacular. As you can see, we're right in the throes of this VIP party. We're waiting for AJ Pero, one of rock's greatest drummers, to come up here. We're going to interview him and find out what he was doing before the big break. Stick around. Yes, there he is. AJ Pero.
Oh, man.
How are you?
How are you, dude?
I'm good. Good to see you. Thanks for
Same
taking
here.
some time.
No problem.
You got to be exhausted after that show.
No, I can probably run a few more laps.
All right. Well, at least 30 minutes so we can
At
get
least
this interview
30
done.
minutes.
Awesome.
No
Cool.
problem.
Let's
Go.
get started.
Yeah, cool.
AJ, the first question I have for you is just the fact that I want to know how. I want to know how Twisted Sister has managed to stay together for so long, and the fact that you are the original drummer, and this is really unheard of.
Well, let's back up a little bit, all right? And this this is one of the lessons to be learned in this one. Boys and girls, don't try this at home. When I joined the band, they were already formed, but a huge club band back in the 70s and the 80s. I'll say that, let's say late 70s, all right? And when I was in high school, we were growing up. You go to a club on a weekend, it was a club. I mean, 2,000 capacity, big bars, nice people and hung out. And then, the Twisted crowd came along, and that's kind of, it got a little rowdy, but I was the fifth drummer. They seem to have problems with drummers. When I joined the band in '81, they weren't signed yet. When I joined the band and we were playing around for a while, we finally got a deal. Now, over all those years, the original band, 72, was JJ and Eddie. And then Dee joined them in 76. So that was really the start.
The real beginning.
The real
of
Twisted Sister, yeah. When Dee became the front man. Mark Mendoza joined in 79, and then I joined in 81. Twisted got turned down about 11 times. Atlantic Records 4 times alone. So
let me ask this, just
yes.
I wanted to ask this, but we jumped ahead. This is great.
Yes.
I heard that you tried for a long time to get signed in America and just didn't work. And
Yeah.
Atlantic turned you down, and you ended up going overseas.
Well, yeah. What happened was we had a couple of self-financed records, 45s. Does anybody know how to say 45s? No, we had self-financed 45s, and how everything else seems to leak out, and somebody has a friend over in Europe, and then sends a copy, and then you have 10 people have a copy, and then 100 people, and then 1,000 people, and then 10,000 people. Now you're causing a buzz over in a different country where you haven't even performed yet, just because of the sound of the band. So a record company called Secret Records, which is funny, Secret Records, independent label, as we know independent labels today, but they were in very far and few independent labels. So we couldn't get signed with a major, so we went with the small independent label, small budget, and we did our first album, which was Under the Blade, which we did in a barn. And no exaggeration, my drum set was in the middle of this huge barn, and I was surrounded by stacks of hay, and Mark was moving them like, all right, try the snare now. And I'm like, no good. Sounds great, leave it alone. So we started recording, and basically how we did it was Mark was in the carriage house, and Eddie was in somewhere else, and I was in this big, huge barn to get this big, fat drum sound. And we got through probably about maybe the first couple days after tweaking this and tweaking that, because that was analog back then. Sure. You couldn't go into the studio and say, that was analog. Whatever you recorded, that's what happened. You made a mistake, you had to do the track all over again. So we got through about maybe halfway through the album. The weekend comes along, and the farm owner says, you got to tear everything down. Like, what? Yeah, mate, we're having a square dance tomorrow, What? You kidding? Yeah, we had to tear everything down. It's Monday come along, we had to start all over again. And we got kind of, you could tell, a musician could tell it's different sound. It kind of sounded a little bit better the second time, but. And then we did the album. We finished it, we mixed it in London, and it went right to Secret Records. And wouldn't you know it? And this is another lesson. We play one show. Lemmy from Motorhead took a liking to us, brought us out, brought us on stage, and he jammed with us, and the crowd loved us, you know, and I guess they did because they were throwing bottles of piss, and, you know, that's how they tell you if they like you over there. They spit on you.
Those Brits.
Yeah, they spit on you, they throw bottles of piss and fruit. Depending on what kind of fruit they throw at you, that tells you the intensity of your popularity.
So what kind of fruit did you get?
Well, I had enough to do a fruit salad. Let's put it that way. Watermelon, grapefruit, oranges, apples. And they would hit my cymbals and like, bing, bing, you know, like split. So I said, you know what? The hell with this. I took my cymbals and I put them like this. They ain't gonna hit me now. Gonna try. So we ended up doing this show, big festival, and record company, we delivered it. They released it, and a week later they went bankrupt.
I heard, and this is right before We're Not Gonna Take It was supposed to be released, is that right?
No, this was Under the Blade. This is the 2 albums before We're Not Gonna Take It.
Oh, okay, that early.
So we go back to New York after telling all our fans, yeah, we got signed, yeah, finally we go. And we come back to New York with our tails between our legs.
So let me ask you this, because that must, a band always wants to get signed. That's their dream. And,
Yeah.
And you went to England and it worked out, you got signed. How devastated were you? Was D, was JJ?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we were all devastated. And the first show we did, I believe, was at the North Stage Theater. And we had to explain to our fans that it just didn't quite work out. But they were still loyal, and they still followed us. And we went back to playing 5-6 nights a week. And then during that period of time that we did the record, we had gotten contracted to do a Christmas TV show in London called The Tube, which is kind of like I don't know if there's any show out nowadays, but it was actually up-and-coming bands, and we were on the show, and Boy George was on the show, and Spandau Ballet was on the show, and we were
friends with Boy George?
Oh yeah, I mean we dated for a while now. Sorry, Shell. I had to say it. I'm sorry.
You heard it first before the big break.
No, believe me. No, we, you know, not that we became friends with them, but it's you know, you have a mutual respect for that. But we did this show, and we financed to go out there ourselves. We borrowed, begged, stole, sold stuff, flew ourselves out there, stayed in great hotels though. And then we did this show. And at that show, Mick Jones from Foreigner was with who's our manager now, Phil Carson. Phil Carson, you know, didn't really have any big bands. I mean, he signed Led Zeppelin, he signed ABBA, he signed AC/DC, he signed, I don't know if you guys heard any of these bands. He signed Yes, you know. Mick Jones had said, because he was doing a guitar giveaway, Mick Jones was from Foreigner, and said, well, who's going to be on the show? And Phil Carson said, oh, I don't know. Some band from New York called Twisted Sister. Mick Jones said, Twisted Sister? Because those guys are great. He says, I want to stick around for them. So Phil Carson said, sure. So we went on. We did 3 songs.
This was on the Tube?
On the Tube. This was in December of 1982. So just keep in mind, let's back up. If anybody's paying attention, we got signed, the record came out, the record company went bankrupt, and now we went back to New York with our tails. I'm going to do a test on this, by the way. And then we flew ourselves out there and we did the Tube right around Christmas of December of 1982. Phil Carson loved it, came to see us, signed us. Now he, at that time, was the executive vice president of WEA, which is Warner Electra Atlantic in Europe.
Interesting. So Atlantic turned you down 1, 2,
Right.
3 times here in the
But
States.
Phil Carson
Then
could
he finds-
sign us
That's great.
to a European deal because they're all separate entities.
Got it.
So he signed us, and that's when we went February of '83. We went into Can't Stop Rock and Roll. Can't Stop Rock and Roll came out, and it did great in Europe, and it was doing incredible numbers as an import. Okay, and that's the key word, boys and girls, import, because who makes the money? Europe.
Yeah.
And Atlantic in America is getting wind of it and saying, well, these guys are selling thousands and thousands of albums, and we ain't making shit. I mean, we're not making nothing. What's going on? So everybody's pointing the finger, and the guy who turned us down 3 times said, wow, I didn't know they were going to do anything. So finally, they signed us for America, and 84 is when we recorded Stay Hungry. We're Not Gonna Take It came out with the Outlandish video, and the band just like 6-7 million copies in America, and became huge because of our videos. And then we toured, and you know, Atlantic Records put us on some pretty crazy tours. I mean, we were in like the middle of summer down south, Albuquerque, New Mexico, opening up for Blackfoot and Crocus, Southern rock, European rock, and glam rock. And they're like, wow,
Sounds like a perfect match.
we're going to see how much we can screw with these guys. We'll put them on at 7:30 in the afternoon. Daylight out, full makeup, down in like Lubbock, Texas. And, you know, Cowboys are going, them girls? Those are the ugliest girls I ever seen. And
So before we go ahead to
Right.
the explosion of Twisted Sister,
right, well, that was before the explosion.
all that whole period, how many record labels were you denied from? How many times were you? I'm just trying to.
Well,
for the people that are trying to do what you're doing.
if you do some research, back then, there was what, 7, 6 maybe, you know, EMI, Sony, Atlantic, Capitol, am I forgetting anybody? A&M, you know, whoever was big, huge labels at that time, turned us down. Atlantic not only did once, not only twice, but 4 times, just because they, you know,
Well, how did you even get in the position where you had the opportunity to get? People would love to get turned down once from a record label. You got turned down 3 times.
Like a lot of bands will make the contact, and then they'll say, we want you to come down to the club. Oh, you don't want to come down to the club? Well, then we'll rent out SIR or someplace, a sound stage, and we'll do a private showing. And they'll sit there like this, and they'll write their little notes, and they'll sit there. And afterwards they'll go, yeah, you guys are good. And then you get back to like the credit card companies. Yeah, all right, no problem. You know, American Express, you got it. And then you get a letter that turns you down. Like, why'd you turn me down? You know, I mean, but they were adamant. They felt that Twisted Sister was caca, plain and simple. And they didn't want nothing to do with us until
the European explosion.
Until the European
British
explosion.
Invasion.
Yeah. It's just like
your American
same thing
invasion,
with
as
the
the case
Beatles.
may be.
I mean, you know, in the 60s, you look like the Beatles in Europe. You're like getting run out of town. But then they come over to America and they were like huge. Then of course it carries over. Then they're like, oh, I guess they're not bad after all, you know. They like them, so I guess we have to like 'em.
Now, going even way back, we'll get to the whole Twisted Sister explosion even further. You got offered the original role with Twisted Sister. It was shortly after high school. This is all my stuff from the internet, so I don't know if you can.
When you say shortly after high school, it's like an overnight success. It took us 10 years to make it, but yeah, we were an overnight success once we got in the record.
I got out because you started when you were 3 years old. Doing drumming. I was just saying, like, it's not like you just got into a band.
No,
You've been
but
doing it for what, 15 years?
You have to understand, I started as a jazz drummer, big band, and that's all I played up until I got into high school. You know, and then I started growing my hair long and started playing Led Zeppelin and Rush and that kind of stuff. And then, you know, I graduated high school '77, went out, did odd jobs, you know, wall bombs, taxi driver, and stuff like that. And then the opportunity came along in '81. I got the audition, and I started rehearsing with them.
So where did the audition come from? A friend? From a
that's a funny story in itself, because like you say, high school. I had moved out to California to try that scene for a while, but that didn't work out. So I came back home, and I actually arrived, which was 1980. I came back home because I was out there for a year. After '79, I left, I went '80. I actually arrived Thanksgiving morning. My father flew out, and we drove home together. We bonded. Me and my pops, we bonded. I drove home, got home Thanksgiving morning, and that next day, Black Friday, a bunch of friends of mine said, "Hey, back, let's go out." And I'm like, "All right, where we going?" "We're going to the factory." "Who we're going to see?" "We're going to see Twisted Sister." I went, "Who?" "Twisted Sister, you got to see these guys. They're unbelievable. They dress like women, they are ugly men, and they play like mother effers." And I'm like, "Yeah, just what I need. I just came back from California, and you want me to see a bunch of ugly transvestites." So that's what I did. I went out to the club that night, and I walked around. I saw the show. They did 3 sets. At that time, they were doing 3 45-minute sets. And a friend of mine who worked for them, I went to high school with, and he says, "Hey, you're back. I heard you're back." Well, it didn't work out. He goes, "Oh, by the way, these guys are looking for a drummer." And I said, "Yeah, right. I'm going to go up there dressed like that."
Safari with Man and Safari and cruise the Bahamas with Julia Roberts, go romping around with Christina and Britney and go to the beach with Christina Ricci. The Hollywood girls are on my mind. I want them all to stand in line. I want them all to shake our hands. I want them all to be crazy morning fans. I want to tour Italy with Angelina Jolie and go backpacking with Anna Paquin. Ride my moped with Jennifer Lopez and go to the movies with Cameron Diaz. And run in the fields with Jessica Biel. I want to hang nightly with Keira Knightley. I think I'm in love with Anna Kournikova. I want to know more about Mandy Moore and Cooper. The Hollywood girls are on my mind.